Hi everyone, this is Rambutan here. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to talk about my first corporate job experience. This is the first time I entered what people call the real world. The first time I went from university life into work life. This is the first time I had a salary, a manager, targets to meet. The first time I realized that just because something looks like success from outside does not mean that your body will survive it from inside. This is the story of my first corporate job. The thing is, when we talk about first jobs, we usually talk about them in a very neat way, like they are rites of passage. Everyone struggles a little, learns a little, becomes professional, becomes mature, becomes corporate ready. And then one day they look back with nostalgia. But for me, my first corporate job was a complete nervous system crash. It was a daily lesson in loneliness. It was about sensory overload, the violence of artificial work environments. I had a very painful discovery that earning money does not automatically mean having a life. I had finished my first MA in Communication and Media Studies in 2019, and after that, I joined a fintech company through campus placement, which itself was a very strange transition for me because I was coming from a communication and media studies background, from media and theory. Suddenly, I was entering a financial technology company where the products were technical, the language was very technical. The people who I was working were BTech graduates, they were technical people, and the entire world of the company seemed to operate through a logic that I was not trained to understand. The company had come for campus placement, and the role most of us, me and my friends, were applying for was technical writing. So, in my head, my path was simple that we would all get similar roles, maybe work in the same broad space and figure out things together. But during the interview process, the head of marketing saw my resume and noticed that I had done some social media marketing work during my bachelor's, some internships. We started talking, and after I got selected, they gave me two options. I was selected for technical writing, and second was for marketing analyst. The marketing analyst role paid more actually. It was around 50,000 rupees a month, my salary, which in 2019, for someone like me at that age, at 22, straight out of an MA, felt like a lot of money. It still is a lot of money. And the difference between the technical writing role and the marketing analyst role was around 10,000 rupees, which also felt significant because when you are young and coming from university life, salary becomes a proof that you're doing well, proof that your family can feel proud, proof that you are not wasting your life. The decision to take the role of a marketing analyst was actually influenced by the marketing head who I got into a call with after selection, and he told me something that really worked on my 22-year-old brain. He said something like, if you go into technical writing, Akshay, maybe in the future you can become a senior writer or an editor, but if you join marketing, one day you can even become the CEO of this company. Now, please imagine a 22-year-old hearing that. A 22-year-old who has just finished university, who wants to believe that some hidden potential is inside him and it has been recognized by an important person in a company. Obviously, I thought, okay, maybe this is the more ambitious choice. Maybe technical writing is safe, but marketing is where I can really grow. And I think this was the first trap I fell into. I made a decision based on the fantasy of what I could become instead of the reality of what I was being asked to do. The important questions I completely forgot to ask was, what does a marketing analyst do in a fintech company every day? I also did not ask, what kind of support will I get as a non-technical person? I just heard one day I will become CEO and I chose marketing. And then very quickly the loneliness began. Four of my friends joined technical writing and they were together on another floor. I think it was the sixth floor, while I was in the marketing on the ground floor. And that itself became very symbolically important in my head because they had each other. They had a group. They had a shared transition. They struggled together. They ate lunch together. They decoded the workplace together. While I was alone in a department where I did not understand the product, did not share the background of the people around me, and did not yet know how alienating a workplace can feel when you're physically surrounded by people, yes, but socially and intellectually alone. And before even I talk about work, I have to talk about the office because the first shock of corporate life for me was the building. I know this may sound strange to some people, but the first thing I felt when I entered the office was the absence of windows, the absence of open air, the absence of natural light. I had studied in universities where there were no fancy AC rooms, no uniform artificial atmosphere. And maybe because of that, I was used to air moving, rain being visible, trees being visible, the day having a rhythm. But in that glass cage of an office, everything felt sealed. There was air conditioning, but it was recycled air. The lights were fluorescent and so bright. And the problem with that kind of light is that you lose your sense of time because 8 in the morning looks like 10 in the morning. 10 looks like 2, 2 looks like 5, 5 looks like 8 p.m. And unless you look outside a glass panel somewhere and realize that the day has changed, that the sky has become dark, your body begins to lose its relationship with time. I really started craving windows during that time. I started craving them in a way that felt almost embarrassing. I wanted one window. I wanted one place where I could see the outside. One place where I could feel that I was still part of the day and not trapped inside an artificial productivity machine. I'm not kidding, but I used to feel like a bird trapped in a glass cage. And the thing is, when you are young and in your first job, you often do not trust your own body's discomfort because you think maybe this is adulthood. Maybe this is what everyone does. Misses the sky and still adjust. Maybe this is what means to be a professional. The office had this culture where you could come in late, maybe around 10 or 11 a.m. in the morning or sometimes later, which on paper sounds very flexible. But the work would stretch late into the evening. And because the clients were based in the US, their day would begin when our day was ending, which meant that around 8 or 9 p.m. meetings could still be scheduled. You could come in anytime, but the work could also enter anytime. I remember one morning coming to office and seeing meetings already scheduled. And when I asked about it, my manager told me something like, this was decided at 9 p.m. yesterday. Don't you have the office chat app on your phone? Install it because we may need to communicate there. And once work enters your phone, work enters your home, it enters your anxiety. And inside all of this, I was struggling with actual work. I was the only non-technical person there, at least among the people my age in that environment. I had an MA background. Most of the others were BTech students. All of them were from the same college. All of them had already interned with the company for 6 months. And then they had joined as full-time employees. Because of that, they already knew the products, the internal logic of the company. They had been slowly absorbed into that world. The thing is, I did not even get proper onboarding or training. I was just dropped into it. And the company products were not simple for me to understand by learning because they were connected to receivables, credit management, financial technology, enterprise solutions, things that would require a certain comfort with financial technical systems. The problem was to do my job, to market a product, I have to understand the product first, right? You cannot build campaigns or communicate value to clients if you do not even know what the thing does. And I did not understand it. I really tried to understand what our 4 products did. I would ask coworkers. My manager tried to explain things maybe for a day or two, maybe in bits and pieces. And I'm not saying nobody ever helped me, but I did not get a proper structured training. I did not get the 6-month runaway that others had received through the internships. I did not get someone sitting me down and saying, you are coming from a non-technical background, so let us build your understanding step by step. After talking to my many friends who were in different companies, I understood that this is how companies took in graduates. Sometimes they had no training. You were just dropped into the job. And I was expected to catch up with these people who already have like 6 months of experience. And every day I was failing to catch up. Every day I would try to understand what our product did, and somehow the concept would slip away. Every day I would sit under those fluorescent lights in that cold recycled air, surrounded by people speaking in terms I did not understand, trying to look like I was learning, trying to look like I was being useful. After a month of work, one day my manager called me and told me very directly, Akshay, I'm very disappointed in you. And that sentence really messed me up. I know maybe he expected more from me, but to a 22-year-old doing his first job, already feeling lost and drained, already feeling like a fraud, already trying to understand something he had not been trained for, that sentence felt like confirmation that I had failed. My heart sank, and after that I started crying in the office almost every day. I even had a designated crying spot. This is one of those details that sounds almost funny now, but it was not funny then. There was a part of the office where some construction, unfinished work was happening, a dark corner where people did not really go. So I would go there, put up a chair in the evening and cry very silently. I really was trying my best every day at work. Still, I was not able to make any progress. And it was almost 2 months at the job and I was still struggling to understand what the company's products did. I was crying so much. So every day I would perform professionalism at my desk and then go hide and cry in that spot. And the marketing team was near the sales team. And I'm not generalizing all salespeople, but in this particular space, the sales team was so loud and brash and constantly making noise. And for someone like me with a neurodivergent brain, trying desperately to understand a complex technical product while sitting near the sales team with their constant chatter and loud noise was torture. I simply could not focus. There was also this one tube light near my chair that kept on flickering, and I remember feeling like it was attacking me from the inside. That is the thing about sensory overload. From the outside, it looks like you're overreacting to small things like a tube light. But from the inside, the small things like a tube light becomes unbearable because your nervous system cannot filter it out. Perhaps the most painful parts of the job was that I started missing evenings. Before that, I had taken evenings for granted. The simple act of walking outside in the evening, seeing the sky change, watching the sun go down, drinking tea somewhere, these are tiny things, but these are also life. And the day I started working, I did not have my evenings to myself. I would leave the office at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m., exhausted. And by the time I reached home, I did not even have the energy to cook. I had no energy to live. I would just crash into my bed. And then the alarm rang, and the next day would begin again. The weekend, Saturday and Sunday, they became recovery days. After 2 months of this exhausted living, I understood that I can earn 50,000 a month, and that can be good salary, especially at that age in 2019. And I'm not dismissing the importance of money at all, because money and financial independence is important. But what is the point of money if your whole life has been swallowed by the job? How do you spend the money if you come back too tired to exist? I felt like a hamster in a wheel. Move, but go nowhere. And because this was my first job, I made another classic mistake. I thought everyone in my workplace was my friend. I had entered the workplace with the emotional habits of my university life. In university, you make friends, you become close quickly, you treat people as people. In office, I was super friendly. I wanted to make friends. I would treat people to chai. And people may be kind, people may be helpful, people may even become friends eventually, but the structure is different. In the workplace, everyone has a role, a hierarchy. You cannot assume emotional safety just because people are polite or nice to you. And this was also the first time I had long interactions with many private university people, my co-workers of my age. Most of my life, I had studied in public schools and public universities, so my reference points were different. The conversations with friends or university students I used to have was about fees, about affordability. But some of the graduates I was meeting now came from very different class locations, from private universities, and their complaints were different. They would talk about campus facilities, about air conditioning, about not having cafe coffee day. Their things were not necessarily invalid because everyone experiences their own world as real. But for me, the distance was sharp. I remember one conversation with a coworker where he was talking to me about ads, and I was telling him that you can block ads or fix your feed. And he said something like he actually liked ads because ads showed him exactly what he wanted to buy. And I remember being stunned because until then in my circles, ads were something to resist. But here, someone was saying actually ads are useful because they help me buy things I want. It was such a small conversation, but it revealed a whole different relationship to consumption, to class. I realized that conversations I was used to having in public university spaces were not conversations happening here. While a few coworkers were genuinely kind and tried to help me, the larger environment still made me feel like I had landed in a place where language, where class and culture and work rhythm were not built for me. And after 2.5 months, I could not do it anymore. I was crying almost every night. Sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night crying. I was devastatingly tired every day, even on weekends. I was trying my maximum to learn, trust me, and to understand, to catch up, to become useful, but I simply could not. And I think this is one of the hardest things to admit, especially when you are young, that effort is not always enough. Sometimes you are trying sincerely, still you are drowning. Sometimes the issue is not that you are stupid or lazy, not that you are irresponsible, but that the environment, the role, the culture, the expectations, all can be misaligned. I eventually spoke to the head of marketing who had hired me and told him that I wanted to leave because I was struggling. They let me go. But before leaving, I did something very me. On my last day, I wrote letters to some of my coworkers, maybe 5 of them, proper letters, like inland post style letters, thanking them, telling them how much I appreciated the way they had tried to teach me, how much they had meant to me, how much I valued their kindness. And when I look back at it now, I think sometimes when we leave a painful place, we don't want to make it fully villainous because that makes the story easier. But real life is much more complicated. And after I quit my job, I returned to education. I went back and did one more MA in sociology. Maybe that was my way of returning to the university, to the world where evenings still existed, where I could read and write and argue and breathe, where I did not feel like a bird trapped in a glass cage. But that first corporate job taught me things I will never forget. It taught me that a good boss is very important. It taught me that training is important. That first few months of a job can make or break a person's confidence. It taught me that salary is not the same as life. It also taught me that neurodivergent people are often not failing at work itself, but failing inside work environments that were never designed for our bodies. And most importantly, I think it taught me to listen when my body says this is not working. Because for 2.5 months, my body was screaming, it was crying, it was exhausted. I had back pain, I had such sensory overload. I started missing evenings, I started hating the lights, I craved windows, I started waking up at night. I wanted to disappear into dark corner and cry. And I think that is why I wanted to tell this story now, because so many young people enter their first jobs and immediately blame themselves for not adjusting. They think everyone else is managing. Why am I not managing? Maybe I am weak. Maybe I am not skilled enough. But I want you to know that sometimes the problem is that you are moved by a fantasy of growth into a role whose everyday reality nobody explained to you. Sometimes your body cannot survive the architecture of capitalist productivity. The truth is, my first corporate job lasted only 2.5 months. But it taught me more about class, about loneliness, about neurodiversity, about the politics of everyday life than many longer experiences could have. And if I could speak to my 22-year-old self now, the one hiding in the dark construction corner of the office and crying quietly, I would tell him, you are not a failure because this place is breaking you. You are not lazy because you need training, Akshay. You are not weak because the lights actually hurt you. You are not unprofessional because you actually missed evenings. And you are not stupid because you do not understand a product nobody properly taught you. You are simply learning in the hardest way possible that survival is also knowledge. And sometimes leaving is the first honest thing you do for yourself.